I don't guarantee the weight loss. I guarantee helping you learn how to eat healthy, helping you to restore your health, helping to find root cause issues and addressing that, because all of my clients have experienced weight loss, but some of them have unrealistic goals of how far they want to take it and how fast it's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to plateau for a few months, 4 or 5 months, while your body heals. And so that's why I try to take the focus off of that. But we want to make sure our mind is on the right part where what is your main goal? Is it that you want to be able to play with your children on the floor, your grandchildren, and be able to get up without being in pain? Do you want to be able to walk around the block without losing breath? Like, that's what I mean by realistic.
If you've been watching, you know that I take my ingredients very seriously, but there are 3 companies that I have found that I absolutely love. Check the description for discount codes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our show today. My name is Adrienne. This is a show where we just talk about to different people who've inspired me to live a healthier life. Today, I have Coach Jen Winkler with us, and this is such a treat. Jen has worked with so many women. Do you work with men too?
I have had some men clients. It's not like my primary focus, but if it's something simple like insulin resistance, gut health, things like that, then yeah, I can help them out.
Oh, yeah, simple. Insulin resistance and gut health. Totally. Well, thank you so much for being here.
In the grand scheme of things.
Okay, so can you tell us, how did you find your way of eating? I'm not exactly sure where you put yourself on the spectrum, but I know that you're big into eating meat. So how did you find your way to that?
So I really don't categorize myself in any, put any category, because I've learned over the years to be intuitive with my body and what is my body looking for. So I just call it the Jen Winkler diet, because that's what I do with my clients too, is I try to help them realize like what foods work best for them, and maybe what macronutrients are they better, higher fat, medium fat, is it some veg, fruit, whatever it is. So for me, most of the time it looks like it's definitely prioritizing protein and getting healthy fats for sure. But sometimes there's foods I'll incorporate that aren't necessarily like keto or whatever. Like I might have some homemade French fries once in a great while. Those are kind of my kryptonite, honestly. So I try to be careful with those. I will definitely incorporate various types of fruits depending on the season, and definitely low carb veggies. But there are times, like right now, I'm doing a month of strict carnivore, of just animal based. Like I'll do it as a little reset, trying to get my body to get back to where it was, but I'm not afraid of the veg or the fruit or anything like that. So that's where I'm at now. As far as how I got here, I've always suffered from PCOS, insulin resistance, since I was in my early 20s. I've had epilepsy since I was 12, so on very high dose medications. I've gone through the gamut on tons of different versions. They would have me on one, I'd have a seizure, and then they switched me to another one. And if you know anything about epilepsy, after 2 drugs fail, they consider that drug-resistant epilepsy. And that's when they would normally bring in ketogenic and try diet interventions. However, no one did that for me. I had to find that on my own. So I gave birth to my son 2016, and I was 220 something pounds. So I was 80 pounds. I gained 80 pounds in my pregnancy. So I really wanted to get back into shape. I was feeling miserable. I had insomnia, anxiety attacks, panic attacks. I couldn't drive. I was super depressed, not just because of weight, but just seriously, like mentally, there was something going on. And that's when I told myself, well, I know junk food's not good, so I'll just eliminate like the processed ice cream, the spaghetti, the pasta, the stuff people know is not necessarily healthy for you. So I kind of went low carb without realizing it. And I started losing the weight and I started feeling better. And that's when I found out about ketogenic. It was 2018. So 2017, I started the journey. 2018, my husband and I both went ketogenic, and he actually saw results sooner than I did. His colitis went into remission pretty quickly. For myself, it just took time to titrate off my medications, but I was feeling better. Like my anxiety attacks were disappearing. Mental health was amazing. Patience with my kiddo, PCOS, all the stuff we hear so much about, PCOS getting better, skin rashes getting better. And then eventually, I would say like 1 or 2 years later, I had given in to so many of the keto treats that were coming out. And so it was kind of this mental game of, oh my gosh, there's so much addiction going on. These things are still sweet. And they were inhibiting my ketosis and I started gaining weight. So I figured, why not try this carnivore thing I've been hearing about? And I did that, but I just made sure to stay high fat because for epilepsy, you want to still produce ketones for healing. So I did that and I was at the thinnest I've been since high school and feeling good, but I don't think I optimized it properly. This is one reason I really suggest people to like work with a coach for at some point in their journey, because I thought I knew what I was doing. And then in hindsight, I was like, oh, no way. I was not eating enough. I was under eating. I was fasting too much. And my hormones began to tank. And when I tried eating more, it was too difficult because I was trying to push up like an extra 400 to 500 calories so quickly. I didn't understand the concept of reverse dieting back then. So now I've just kind of found my sweet spot of like, you know, with dinner, I might have some cauliflower rice, some broccoli, some low carb veg on occasion. I might have a small tangerine or something as my dessert, or some black cherries, you know, simple little things that now my body's not insulin resistant. It can handle it. And yeah, it feels like a really nice freedom to have that part.
Did you struggle to get pregnant with your son at all?
That's a good question. So my when we got married, or before we got married, I told my husband I didn't want to have any kids because I was too nervous being on a high dose of epilepsy medication. What would happen? But I wasn't on any birth control or anything like that. We were using fertility awareness method, you know, where a woman can figure out what part of her cycle she can get pregnant at. And so we were using that method. And then just one day I felt inside like, Jeff, I really want to try to have a kid. And he was like, what? You serious? So that was around the month of August, I believe. And we conceived in December. So we tried those few months, and then it was like the third month. I don't know. Like, I mean, I had PCOS, but my doctor actually is very natural minded, my OBGYN, and he gave me some supplements to help combat the insulin resistance. So I think that was part of what helped me to conceive at that time.
So do you still use those supplements?
Not necessarily, because I don't have the symptoms of PCOS anymore. I mean, I still have the diagnosis. It sticks with you forever, but I don't need them. I continued them halfway through the pregnancy, and then I just kind of, you know, some people just kind of forget about it. It was like, okay, whatever. I'm already pregnant. So, but no, I mean, it was just your basic like fish oil, quality fish oil. Myo-inositol is a very popular one in the hormone and blood sugar balance space, and NAC. And that was it. That's all he gave me.
So then did you go on to have a pretty simple pregnancy, and are you able to take epilepsy medicine while you're pregnant?
That's a good question. It depends on what you define by simple for pregnancy. I mean, I was gaining weight pretty rapidly. I was very uncomfortable. But as far as, you know, having any seizures, you know, thank God I did not have any. That can be pretty dangerous. I had to continually check in with my neurologist and my OBGYN a little more often than a typical female would have to. And we did a few extra ultrasounds just to make sure the growth and everything was going well. Okay. Anti-epileptic drugs, there's different types. They're not all the same. So because we knew we were going to try to start conceiving, my neurologist switched my medications to the safest ones there are. They're not safe, but they're the safest. And then there's studies out there saying if you take, now the studies say folic acid. So hindsight, I wouldn't have done folic acid, but that's what the doctor told me. That's all I knew back then. So folic acid can help combat the negative aspects of anti-epileptic drugs. And so I was on I forget what the dose was, but I was on a dose of that every single day to help. And then she explained the studies where the average woman has about a 2% chance of getting any birth defects, like from having her baby have any birth defects, just the average woman. When someone takes anti-epileptic drugs, it only increases by about 2 to 3%. So it's really not that much more. And when they say birth defects, that includes something as simple as like a cleft lip. That would be considered a birth. So it doesn't always have to be something drastic. When you get to the drastic ones, it's actually still much less. So no, healthy pregnancy, healthy delivery, naturally, in the hospital, but naturally. And like, he's 8 years old now, so he's doing great. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just trying to dig into a little bit of the PCOS and like where you're coming from. Did you have a good milk supply? Because sometimes when you have PCOS or autoimmunity or any of these things, you won't have milk. And I didn't have any milk. Like I say any, but I mean, I had like droplets despite immense effort.
Yeah, no, I didn't have, I breastfed for less than a month. And I would say like even the fourth week, it was like that. It was like drops. It wasn't much. He was losing weight pretty quickly. The pediatrician wasn't concerned, but from my research, I was like, he should have gained some weight by now. So we ended up switch pediatricians, and I thought the reason mine diminished was because he had a lip and tongue tie. So I guess that's one thing that he ended up having. And I think he just wasn't getting a good latch. But even when I tried machine pumping, it wasn't coming out. I also know I did not have a good diet. I wasn't eating enough fat at all whatsoever. I mean, back then I thought fat was bad. So I was doing the kashi bars, I was doing fruit, I was doing any type of snacky food, right? Like there was no fat, and we know that breast milk, to produce enough, you need to have enough fat in your diet, right? So and I wasn't doing much, proteins and things like that. So I wouldn't be able to pinpoint exactly why that happened, but I know it was probably a number of contributing factors.
I really blamed myself for child 1, 2, and 3. And then when I went to have number 4, I did everything right. I did everything more and more and more every single child. And number 4, there was nothing left to try. There was nothing left. I literally birthed them at home and still droplets of milk. And so then I found out that this is actually becoming common with all our hormones and our insulin resistance out there. So any women out there who are blaming themselves, do your best and let's work on the underlying issues. Okay. So
yeah, that's all you can do.
So you go keto and you've healed your insulin resistance?
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was basically, I mean, my fasting insulin I had before was in the teens somewhere. So it wasn't horrific. With my clients, I've definitely seen ones that were much, much higher. But yeah, it was in the teens. Now my fasting insulin's typically between 2 and 6. Maybe there was one time I had a 7 when I was experimenting with some stuff, but even that I'm not considered like insulin resistant necessarily. We like it under 6. But yeah, I've used CGMs. I found my body's much more insulin sensitive. I still have to be careful from time to time. And I know some women with PCOS is the same way. If you try to introduce certain carbs, they will still react. So that's part of what I do is like, okay, let's figure out what those carbs are. Some women, they can have the sweet potato and be fine, but also comes into play where you are in your cycle. So maybe in the first half of your cycle, you can have some sweet potato and you're very insulin sensitive in the first part of your cycle. The second half, you're much more naturally insulin resistant due to the progesterone being produced. So, we might play around and see like, okay, let's try it in the first half of your cycle. Now let's try it in the second half. Did you notice any differences in your brain health, in your energy levels, in your weight, any of those kind of things? If they're wearing a CGM, that's obviously way more, it gives a lot more data because you can see the spike, the glucose spike, and, did it go high? Did it go back to baseline? Any of those kind of things. But yeah, we'll play around with various types of whole food carbs and see how that works. And some of them might be like, I can barely do any. And I mean, that's at least then they know.
Okay. So how has the epilepsy been since the keto?
Yeah. So my last grand mal seizure was April of 2005. I was actually studying in Europe at that time for studying abroad. And then when I came home, they put me on a second medication. So I was only on one medication at that time. They added a second one. And they were pretty well controlled, but I definitely had the side effects of them, which were all mental health side effects. They were irritability, mood swing, panic attacks, all those kind of things. So the medication was maxed out. Like every year, I would be getting these feelings like, they're called auras. I would get auras like a seizure was going to come. And my neurologist would just up my medication. Afterwards, I realized, well, I'm not feeling well. And that's when I decided to start keto. I asked her, she said, I don't know enough about it. You can figure it out on your own if you want. So I did. She didn't give me any resources. I didn't know dietitians specialize in this. There's some of them that do. And then I started feeling better, and I got a new neurologist who said, you are on way too much medication. Let's titrate you down. Ketogenic's a great one for you to be on. He knew all about it. So he helped guide me to bring the medication down. And as we did slowly, it's like a giant cloud lifted off of my face, off of my head. And there was this freedom that I couldn't describe, that like, you think you're living a good life, but then when a lot of these barriers get removed, you're like, I didn't even know this was possible. Like, I didn't know this is what I was missing out on all this time. So that's what happened. I mean, thank God I haven't had any more seizures. My sleep has gotten a lot better, and that's really crucial for epilepsy, to have some good sleep. And then, yeah, I mean, even some days that I don't get much sleep, usually that's when a seizure would break through, and that hasn't happened. Now, perimenopause will be interesting to see, what happens during that time, because hormones play a big role. But yeah, it's been really good. I mean, I still technically have it with my last EEG I had, but that was about 3 or 4 years ago that I had the last one. And 4 years ago, it was in 2020. And yeah, so I asked her, do we test it again? She said, I would wait, because it's not a very fun test to do. So, I mean, I might still have it. I might not. I don't know.
I'm very interested in today's maintenance. How do you maintain this awesome weight loss you've had? Can you eat food? Do you still have to be restrictive? Do you go through waves? What is life like today?
Yeah, so I don't go by the scale. I do weigh myself from time to time just to make sure, but I go mainly by how my clothes are feeling. So I have these one pair of pants. I've shared them on Instagram. They're my linen pants, my favorite one. I've had them for a long time. And if those start getting a little snug, that's my determinant. Like, okay, then I have to pay attention. Is it just bloat of the day, or is it actually fat that I'm gaining? So that's how I determine where things are at. That being said, I made sure to develop, I hate using the word healthy relationship, because you can't have a relationship with food. Like, they don't they don't give you
I hate
emotions
that too.
and feelings. But I have yet to find another option of what to say with that. So I will use that for now. But I've developed healthy eating habits, knowing what foods trigger me and which ones don't. And I stay away from the ones that trigger. If it's one that does, like my husband's homemade French fries that taste amazing fried in tallow, I have to go in it with a proper mindset, knowing I am going to put this amount on my plate, and I have to be so full that there's no way I'm going to be able to stuff more in. It has to be planned and not just off the whim. So that being said, yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, there's occasions if I feel like having a half an apple or an orange as a dessert, I will do that. But I'm careful. I'm still very low carb. I'm still like under 50 grams of carbs. I don't go over. There'll be a rare occasional treat, like if it's my son's birthday or if he gets this big jiu-jitsu promotion thing, whatever it is. We might go out for some gelato. There's a good gelato place by us that's really clean. So, but that's like rare, and so we don't go out to eat much. If we do, it's the Brazilian steakhouse. We just save our money from all the other restaurants and treat ourselves to something really nice. But yeah, everything's home cooked. We just bought a half a cow, which was really exciting. The first time we've purchased local. And I will tell you, I wish I did it a lot sooner. It tastes so good. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it looks like now.
Do you guys have cows in Arizona? Or where are you in Arizona?
Yeah, big time. I am. Yeah. So Phoenix is very hot, and there are some farm animals around here, but the further north you go, you get all 4 seasons. So 2 hours north of here, there's cows just roaming the mountains and all around that pasture raised stuff. And if you go even further, there's a ski resort. There's snow up there. They get like 5 feet of snow in the winter. So there's definitely areas. It's similar to the Midwest the further north you go, but there's a lot of ranchers. I mean, it's cowboy. It's you come to Arizona, there's lots of cowboy stuff. So it's been ranching for a long time here.
I aspire to move there because I want the sun in my bones. I do, and I love just that.
Oh, you'll get the sun.
Right in my bones. My aunt lived there growing up in Phoenix, and she used to tell us, "I'm cooking eggs on the front sidewalk."
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's people talk about that, but it doesn't really. I mean, maybe a little bit. It's not going to cook the same as your skillet or whatever. No, this has been one of the hottest summers we've had. It's October 17th, and I think yesterday was the first day under 100 degrees, which normally September gets to the 90s and then it cools. So there was lots of sun this summer for sure. No doubt about that.
So what is your movement like now? No, I just want to preface this with, before finding carnivore for my autoimmune, I thought that weight loss and weight maintenance and healthy, fit body was 90% exercise and 10% food. And now I know it's the opposite. But what kind of movement do you do?
So for myself, since I'm kind of in a maintenance, I mean, I'd like to lose another 10 pounds, but I'm not focused like calorie deficit all the time. I don't think that's a healthy thing to be in. I know that's not healthy to be in. You want to work yourself up to your maintenance level and then put yourself in a fat loss phase. Like maybe every 2 to 3 months, you can boost it back up to maintenance and then do another fat loss phase. But that being said, my exercise, because I've also had history of adrenal stress and cortisol disruption, I am very careful with my exercise. I will go 2 to 3 times. It's typically a 2-day a week, honestly, with just mom life. I will go to the gym 2 days a week for 45 minutes-ish to an hour sometimes, depending where I am in my cycle. And I do 2 full body workouts both times. So I'm definitely focused mostly on the glutes and thighs, like the big muscle groups and the torso, the abdomen, back, things like that. And then doing some biceps, triceps, things like that. So I try to switch it up each of those days so it keeps your body guessing. But I'll pay attention to how my body's feeling that day. And I'm not going to, like, there was one day last week, for some reason, when I got to the gym, it wasn't the laziness. It was literally like, I feel like I don't have anything to put into this. So I kept it extremely simple, like really, like maybe like I normally do 15-pound dumbbells when I'm doing bicep curls. And I kept it at like, I think it was 5 or 7. It was really simple. And I didn't push myself far. I only did a few workouts and I was like, all right, I did something. It's just helping me to not break my habit of coming. And then I'll come back when I feel better, because I've worked so hard over the years to fix that adrenal stuff that I don't want to screw it up even more again. So yeah.
Same. I used to be a runner. No more running for me. I'm a walker now. Do you walk and stuff?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've made it a habit over the past, I'd say it's been at least a year now. When I wake up, my typical morning is, I wake up, I make the bed, go to the bathroom, put on some workout clothes, and I head straight outside. If my husband's not home, I will just walk around the backyard, and I have like my morning prayer journal and things like that I'm reading as I'm just circling the backyard for at least 20 minutes. If my husband is home, I'll be like, okay, I'm taking the dog for a walk. And then we go around the block. But that's always every morning. And my son's getting settled, doing his like playtime or whatever. We have this nice solid routine every morning. I'm done with my walk. I do a little face plunge. It's part of my morning thing that I've loved doing. It just wakes me up, helps me feel good. And then breakfast, so we just get that going. So now it's just habit. Just like we wake up, you shower, you brush your teeth, make your bed. It's just ingrained. And if I don't do it, something feels out of place or the rest of the day doesn't go accordingly. So I definitely do the morning. Sometimes now that the weather's cooling, I will definitely do evening walks as well. But summertime, it's like, it's too hot.
So with the working out, you had mentioned something, and I'm wondering, like, this is my week before my cycle, and that's when your progesterone drops, right? And so I get so tired that this week I haven't like worked out at all. I'm so tired. And in full disclosure, I'm working on supplemental bioidentical hormones, which we can talk about your thoughts on that. But yeah, is that normal for the week before your cycle to be so tired?
It's common, but I don't think normal. And it depends, like for the way you say it, it sounds like you are really exhausted. So what I suggest, there's 2 methods that I suggest to clients. If someone has to be carnivore, I tell them you can either try upping your fat 200 to 300 calories that week. You don't want to focus on weight loss that week at all. In fact, if you gain a pound, that's fine. Don't worry about it. You need to balance your hormones. That is priority for you to feel good. So progesterone, it's not supposed to decline a week before your period. It declines 1 or 2 days before your period. It's a bell curve. So it peaks about 7 days after ovulation, and then the bell curve slowly starts going down. So if you're feeling exhausted, it's going down too quickly, typically is one of the things. I mean, it could be other things, but that's one of the things it could be. I always tell my clients, you have to eat more that week before your period, about 200 to 300 calories, depends on the person, depends on how much they work out and they exercise. You might need a little bit more. And then you also want to tone down the exercise. So you can do it either for the food part, either increasing just the fat, because as we know, carbs or fat are energy sources. So some people do better with that. Some people do better increasing just the protein because their body is doing gluconeogenesis and it ends up feeding the progesterone. Progesterone feeds on glucose. We don't need a lot of glucose for progesterone. My understanding, it's something like 15 grams-ish worth. But I still have yet to find the exact studies that show those numbers. And then some people just feel better adding the carbs, like 20 grams of carbs, whether it's, and the cruciferous ones are really good because they have DIM, which help balance the estrogen and progesterone. They'll help decrease the estrogen if there is estrogen dominance. So it just depends on what the numbers are, where each of the hormones are at. And then lastly is obviously if it's due to adrenal fatigue, if your body's been in a constant state of stress. And every time I say that, people think, oh, I'm not stressed out. And I'm like, it's not just the mental stress, it's the demands of life. If you are a mom, you are probably stressed. Like you have a lot of responsibility. If you are a caretaker, you have your parent at home, maybe someone passed away, maybe you drive often to work and the traffic is a stress. Like there's just constant stress. You could have, I know you've gone through the SIRS protocol, like that's a stressor on your body. The healing process is a stressor. We have EMFs around us all the time. Like there's so many things that it's not just the mental part. So that part, maybe that the female would need a little bit of support adrenally. And then also B vitamins. That's a huge, huge one. I've been learning so much about supplemental B vitamins during PMS week and how much it can help the female with her PMS symptoms. I believe B6 is the main one. And a lot of women tend to be deprived in that, especially if they have the MTHFR mutation gene. Vitamin C is also important that week. So there's so many avenues you could go down as far as feeling fatigued, but like step by step, figure out which one.
I love this. You just nerded out really big time. How
Yeah,
did you figure out?
I do.
How did you figure out that this is what you needed to do was to help people? How did you figure that out?
So when I went to college, I'm going to backtrack a little bit and give a little background story. I went to college and majored in theology and catechetics and became a youth minister. So helping teens come closer to Christ, those kind of things. I did that for a number of years. So I really feel like it's always been in my heart to help heal. I'm a healer. I like to bring people to wholeness, whether it's spirituality or whether it's physical. Now, even before that, I've always wanted to be a nurse. My sister, she's 8 years younger than me, was diagnosed with cancer when she was 6. So we've been in the hospital a lot with her situation and then my epilepsy. So I've been around the medical practice a lot. I have family that are doctors. And that's what I wanted to be, doctor or a nurse. But I couldn't with my epilepsy. That prevented me from that study. So I say that part because it really plays a cool role in all of this. That was right before college, 2002-ish. I majored in it, but then didn't finish, switched to theology, did youth ministry, and then was a teacher after that, taught elementary school, had my son, came home, became a stay-at-home mom. As he grew up, I was like, well, what am I going to do with my life? And that's when I was learning all this. And people would ask me, Jen, you look so good. What are you doing? And I would be helping them and I'd be teaching them. This is all I know so far. And then I learned, wait, this is a job. I can do this. Like this can be my profession. So I've gone to Primal Health Institute doing my course there, master coach, sat the national board exam to become a national board certified health and wellness coach, took certifications to work alongside doctors. So I have a GI doctor I work alongside with. I have my PCP that will refer people to me at times as well. And it brings me so much fulfillment because originally I wanted to be a nurse to help people heal. And it's like God had this vision. He's like, I know what you truly want, Jen. You think you know what you want, but I know what you truly want. And many years later, he brings me to this, which is 100 times better. Like conventionally, I would have only brought them so far, but now it's like I'm helping them heal from within. And it has brought me so much satisfaction to see others find that healing and to break addiction and to be like, wait, I don't have to restrict to 1,000 calories a day. I can enjoy a freaking ribeye with a bunch of butter. Like, I don't have to feel guilty about that. And it's beautiful. And some of my clients will touch base later on too. Like, they'll send me pictures and I'm just like, wow, you're still going. Like, just because we finished coaching doesn't mean, I try to help them learn those habits so that it's not just a diet, but you're switching your lifestyle, you're switching your mindset, all of this, so that you can keep going on this and learn, how do I change it as I go along. But yeah, sorry, I tend to talk a lot when I get passionate.
I love it. I love it. That's exactly what I need you to do. I want to talk about, like, what do the kinds of things that are pretty common that people will come to you with that they need help with.
Yeah, so lately, because I've been diving in a lot with hormones and learning all of that, I've been getting a lot of hormone clients, primarily PCOS. That's my main focus, and insulin resistance. So it's all over the place. Some of my clients that are graduating this month, one has PCOS, and she's I don't want to say my favorite, but she's one of my favorites because we actually didn't find a complete resolution. And why would that be my favorite? Is because then it gave me a challenge. Like, wait, let's dig deeper, because your insulin resistance has gotten better, but your PCOS hasn't. And so then I really was able to dive deep and help guide her and be the coach that she hired me to be. And then I was like, wait, I think I know what this is. We figured out it's connected to her adrenals, and we had to refer her out. It's out of a coach's, it's surgical and stuff like that. So, I have people like that. I have people who are insulin resistant, type 2 diabetic. And then as we change diet, we learn it's not just diet. There's microbiome issues. So we look at the gut health as well. And we start addressing gut health. We start addressing dysbiosis and like pathogens that may be growing. We do GI maps. We do Dutch tests. I really have a whole spectrum, but primarily hormones, I would say.
So can you order the tests, or you work with someone, or they go to their PCP and get the test and then you can help look at them? Or
so they can go to their PCP and request them. The reason I don't like that is because oftentimes the client will be waiting weeks for that appointment. So we're just wasting time, weeks, months, whatever. They get there and the doctor's like, I'm not going to order that for you. And it's for a number of different reasons. Either they don't know how to read it or they don't see the point of it. And so then we end up, the client always gets nervous. Everybody gets nervous at their doctor appointment because they don't want to override them or whatever it is,
we
and
want
so then
the
they leave the
approval
appointment and
of
they tell
the
me
experts.
this is, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We want their
And
approval.
they'll come back to me and say, hey, yeah, exactly. And they'll come to me and say like, hey, here's the labs they ordered. And I'm like, I'm not, for a perfect example is thyroid. This is the one that drives me up the wall. They will get either only TSH.
So PCP isn't super excited to order these because they're not seeing the point. It's not part of their protocol. So then they come back to you and then can you order it or help them?
Yeah. So that's why I say I don't like them to go to their PCP primarily unless they know their doctor is willing to order anything they need. Then that's fine, because then it's covered by insurance. I mean, that's a whole different rabbit hole I could go down. But I can't order tests. It's just pay out of pocket, but it's super discounted. And even like there's some ones you can go online and buy yourself, but the place that I order through is even more discounted through that. And then I can do things like a GI map, which is a stool analysis to check the health of your gut microbiome. And I also do Dutch testing as well, which measures the hormone metabolites. So the progesterone, the estradiol, testosterone, cortisol, adrenals, all those kind of things. But yeah, I can order those.
Oftentimes I will go in and my symptoms will be red flag, this hormone issue is happening. But then when I go in, the test doesn't match it. Do you know why that is? Or do you gear more towards the symptom versus the test?
It depends on what the situation is. The number one thing I would say first is that it's not flagged because it's conventional standards and the conventional ranges. The conventional ranges are always changing because they're based on what the popularity is. So if there is, at one point, for example, liver enzymes used to be like a range of, I forget what the minimal number was, but it was like a max of like 20 or 25. And then as America got more and more unhealthy, the range was like okay, to be the least unhealthy, you have to be in this range. And now a lot of labs say a liver enzyme up to 45 is healthy. And I'm like, no, it's not. You've got liver problems at that point. So I look at it from a functional standpoint. I look at what is optimal. So if you picture like a bar graph going horizontally, there's the optimal range here. And then whether it's going too, well, I guess it's reverse, going too low or going too high, these standards are like your check engine light is on. Hey, something's going on. Let's check what's going on. And then further out is you're in the state of disease, right? So that's how I look at it functionally. And then there was something else I was going to say, but I forgot. Yeah, so it could be that part, or it could just be for example, thyroid. I like diving in thyroid. That's been my thing lately. The lab numbers might be good. Let's say we did a full advanced thyroid panel, TSH, T4, T3, free T3, TPO antibodies, T3 uptake, reverse T3, all the stuff. And all of them are perfect. I've never seen that. I've never seen that in anybody. But let's say they were, and the person still had hypothyroid symptoms, and we ruled out any other possible cause, such as enough calories, protein, fats, all those kind of things. Well, then we could conclude maybe it's cellular hypothyroidism. Maybe your cells are just not absorbing the thyroid hormone or whatever it is properly. And we need to work on cellular health, cellular mitochondria, the cellular membrane, all those kind of things. So we need to dive a little deeper into it.
Amazing. So like if somebody comes back with gut issues, what is kind of the direction you go? Are there supplements for it, or is it reducing certain things you're eating, or what happens with the gut? Because that one just sucks. I'm sorry. That one sucks. I've done so many protocols.
No, it does. And I bet. I would say I always try to go lifestyle and diet first as much as possible. But there are certain things that you do need some temporary supplementation. But I think, so first of all, to preface, gut is not only like what we imagine, like GI problems, like diarrhea, constipation. Gut problems can even be like, I get constant migraines, or I have these skin rashes. That's very connected to your gut. Or, eczema, all those kind of things are connected to the gut. So just preface that when someone's like, oh, I don't have gut issues. Well, but do you? There might be other symptoms that manifest outside of your actual GI area. So depending on the person, depending what comes back on the test is how we, I don't like using the word treat, that's out of my scope, but how we help the symptoms, I guess I could say. So always diet first. Obviously, get out the ultra processed foods, get out the inflammatory foods. If they want to go carnivore temporarily, that's a perfect one to do for most people. Some people that wouldn't work. And paying attention to what foods will irritate the gut. So if they have high calprotectin on their GI map, I'm going to say you don't want much fiber right now because your colon is so inflamed and the fiber is going to mess it up even more. If it's just a balance of good microbes and bad microbes, okay, we'll go to a good probiotic protocol, especially if they've had history of antibiotics, like broad spectrum antibiotics. Then we'll go down that rabbit hole. Certain antivirals, antifungals, depending what we find, antimicrobials. And some people we have to rotate on and off of these things because you don't want to be on it too long. So we'll take them off for a bit, continue to till the soil, build the microbes, and then do another second round. Some people, their actual lining is thinned out. So, we want tight junctures in our gut lining. We don't want things to pass through to cause the reactions. So we always work on that too, on restoring the gut lining so that the junctions are really tight. So it's really it's not something that's done in 2 or 3 months. I would say it's like for the average person who's not super have a lot going on, 6 to 9 months ish from beginning to the end of restoring the gut lining.
And do people also come to you for weight loss?
Oh yeah. That's a big one that comes. I just tell them I don't guarantee the weight loss. I guarantee helping you learn how to eat healthy, helping you to restore your health, helping to find root cause issues and addressing that. Because weight loss, all of my clients have experienced weight loss, but some of them have unrealistic goals of how far they want to take it and how fast it's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to plateau for a few months, 4 or 5 months, while your body heals. And so that's why I try to take the focus off of that. Now, when they do lose weight, fantastic. We celebrate it, of course, but we want to make sure our mind is on the right part where what is your main goal? Is it that you want to be able to play with your children on the floor, your grandchildren, and be able to get up without being in pain? Do you want to be able to walk around the block without losing breath? Like realistic fit. That's what I mean by realistic.
Before coming into this community, I tried The Biggest Loser. I tried running and restricting. I tried gastric bypass. And what I wasn't getting the whole time until people like you came into my life was that this was about healing. I didn't realize if you're having a hard time losing weight, it's because you have an underlying issue. And that really is keeping you from being able to do that. This has been the first time of healing. And if I'm going to be honest, I don't know that the carnivore diet was actually a weight loss diet for me. It's been a healing diet. And it's healed it's been healing mentally, physically, gut-wise, but also I had no idea. I'm sure that you deal with this too, and I'd love to know what kinds of things you talk to your patients about, because I've seen your reels. So I know that before coming in here, I thought if I just restrict the right things enough, I will finally succeed. And I went all the way down to lion diet and water. And then my body gained 14 pounds in the matter of a couple of days. So I guess where I'm going there too is the mindset of restriction, addiction, and healing. I feel like there's just so much here of where we can go with this. So when people come to you kind of orthorexic, like me, how do you get them through that? Can you get them through that? Or is it just kind of an experience thing? Because for me, I was sure if I just restrict enough foods, I'll finally heal and lose weight. And that wasn't right.
Yeah. I see that a lot around our space. And it's sad. Like some people do need to restrict for a temporary time, but that's where I think it's the hardest battle. It's very easy to just be like, yeah, I'll take out these foods. That's fine. I'll carnivore harder. I'll do the lion diet. And some people do need that. I want to preface, I'm not against it. Like some people will do that and they will heal. But all of us, I feel like, are coming from a restrictive mentality. But it used to be just eat less, and work out more. And that was, so now it just kind of, we never really got rid of that mentality. Instead, we shifted it over to, okay, I'm going to be carnivore, keto, whatever it is, but I still can't enjoy too much. I still have to be careful. I still, and you do, but it's a delicate balance with it. And it requires mind work. It requires healing from things in the past. Maybe you do need to go to a therapist and talk about it. Like, when did this restrictive mentality come up? Were you bullied in school? Were your parents shaming you? All these kind of things. And you need to find that deep healing. The body keeps the score, right? So like doing some kind of therapy with that part can be helpful. Sometimes there are breakthroughs I have with clients where we might talk about it and then they realize, oh my gosh, that's where it came from. Like I'm not a therapist, so I don't say that, but there will be breakthroughs sometimes in certain sessions. But I really just want that healthy, again, I can't think of a better term for it, but that healthy relationship with food right now, where it's like, you want to get out of that restrictive mentality. You want to build up and realize food is for nourishment. It's for pleasure too, but it's primarily to nourish your body and learn gratitude. That's another part of it. Learn gratitude. How do you start out your day? Do you start out your day listening to the birds, like looking at the sunset or sunrise, morning, beginning of the day, and being thankful for what you have? Because when you start out that way, you're creating these neural pathways. You're making new ones that looks at life more positively. So it's honestly, I feel like harder to work on the psychology of all this stuff because there's stuff we don't want to deal with and we've repressed it and we've pushed it down and we're just like, I don't want to go there. That's the deep dark closet. Like if you watched Inside Out 2, the Riley's closet, the deep dark secret thing, like we all have that. And we don't want to visit that because we know the emotions that come with it, and food quiets it.
You really are the whole package. So I'm really grateful that you started working with some of my friends because you popped up on my feed. I started hearing about you. And why I was so grateful for this today is because you were the first person in my space to put in the idea that maybe carbs aren't evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
maybe
Well,
sometimes you can eat those and it actually might be okay. And I
yeah.
also
Yeah.
love,
So,
go
okay.
ahead.
Oh, I want to say something like that. This is the realization I'm coming across because I've had some great conversations. I actually have a episode on my YouTube coming out tomorrow about this, where we have this, because there are three macronutrients: carbs, protein, fats. We bunch all carbs together, whether they're bad or good. But we have to remember a bowl of pasta or a giant chocolate bar or whatever sugary crap food is not the same as broccoli. It's not the same as strawberries. It's not like, and that's what I mean by finding the right food for you, because broccoli typically does not trigger somebody the same way maybe a fruit does. I know people that they have fruit, they'll go to the end of, they'll just keep going, but it won't trigger you the same way that ice cream will or whatever it is. So finding those healthy foods, and there are benefits to certain carbs. Cruciferous vegetables have a component of them called DIM. I can never say the long word of it, but it helps with estrogen detoxification. Now, a lot of women, if they're super estrogen dominant, will need the supplement as well, but the vegetables are going to help to a degree. And they're, the whole thing in the carnivore space, which has been difficult for me to deal with, is that plants are trying to kill us. And they're not if you cook them the right way. Now, certain raw ones, yes, but if you learn how to properly cook them, it deactivates those components that do harm you. So yeah, sorry, I had to throw that in there.
No, that's great. Where I came into this space was incredibly inflamed and very, very sick. And at that time, honestly, every plant was making me sick. So there's definitely a time and a place for healing and for carnivore. And also coming into this space, I thought that 90% of my plate needed to be vegetables and 10% meat. And it's the opposite. And so I think the amount of what we're eating is a big factor. But another thing that really caught my eye about you was before I heard about you, I worked one-on-one with a coach, and understandably, her rates were very high. Like, let's go with $600 a month. But that was a lot of her time. So I'm not putting the rates down. It was a big investment. Yeah. And I heard from you say, I don't know what your current plans were, but you were pretty flexible based on what somebody needs. Is that still true, or how does it work?
Yeah. So I don't have just one program. I have a number of programs to try and help people to the best of their ability. So I have programs if you just need like help looking at labs and functional assessment and you don't necessarily need the coaching. I have labs or plans as small as, $115 a month. And then if you do need, the more hand holding you need, the higher the price goes, up to $500 a month. So, and then also depending on how long your contract is, so if you contract out longer, I'm going to give you a discount for that. We're going to go lower. So I'm doing my best to not gouge people out, like I am I have to pay for my business. I am also the bookkeeper. I am also the secretary. I'm also the marketer. I'm also I have many hats in this position. So, and I also want to keep my client load as small as possible so that I can remember what's going on with each client and be able to help them much in a better way than as if I had like 50 clients, right? So I try to keep it on the smaller end and do as much as I can with each client. And we do have referral out too.
If the $600 plan was an hour per week plus more, one-on-one, plus access 24/7 via the phone, plus a meal plan, plus a app, plus a workout plan, plus a whatever you needed. So, I mean, it is a lot of time, but I love that you have different options. So it's not just, hey, I got to commit to you for $1,000 a month for the rest of the year. Well, it's October, but the next year, so that just makes it so much more, I can get what I need from you. Because maybe I'm not new and I need something very specific. But as you were saying, sometimes even when we're into this, we need more help sometimes than we think we do.
I always
No.
offer like a free call too to make sure, because I don't want to take on a client that I'm not that it's just out of my scope. And I have told people that on the call. I'm like, you know what? Your situation, you're already doing all the things, and there's nothing more that I personally can find. So that's when I have a list of references that I refer out, certain doctors that are in line with the way that we eat, low carb, ketogenic, carnivore, and they specialize more. Like I had a woman last week who came to me, and she's already been keto. I dove in a little bit more during discovery call than I normally do, and she was doing all the things right. Like it was good, but she was also 41 and her progesterone was declining. And I said, at this point, like, you might be better just talking to one of these doctors that specialize in bioidentical hormone replacement therapy and going down that road. I said, we could work a little bit. I offered her like a 1 month thing where it's like I could just tweak a few things, see if it does help with your progesterone production. But I feel like a lot of women, once they hit the 40s, they can benefit a little bit from some hormone replacement therapy, as long as it's bioidentical.
That's been a life
Yeah.
changer for me. And I wish people would have told me about it sooner. Do you do anything group, or is that's not really in the business model?
Yeah. So I did at one point, but recently, I think it was like 2 or 3 months ago, I actually signed on with Dr. Ken Berry. So I'm one of his pro coaches in his PhD community, the Proper Human Diet. So when people want to do group, I just tell them, head over to his group, sign up for the pro level, and then I'll be in there and you'll have access to me. And then you also have access to him, which then you're getting doctor. And I'm like, I can't beat that. I can't. I don't feel like it's worth me creating a whole nother group coaching thing. So I just send them. I don't get commissions or anything off of them signing up. It's just go over there,
Oh, well, this has been so awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to my audience about what you offer and what your experience has been. Okay, so where can people find you? Had I been on my computer, I would have brought it up because I already did, but it sounds like you're on Instagram,
okay.
Coach Jen Winkler. And what is your YouTube?
Same thing, Coach Jen Winkler. And then my website is just my name, jenwinkler.me. And you can learn a little bit more about my story. I am currently updating my website, so I don't have all my services listed there, but you can fill out the application to work with me and just give me a little bit of information of what you need, and then we'll set something up.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you spending your afternoon with me. So thank you guys so much. Everybody, thank you for tuning in today. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, and share. Goodbye.
Bye.